Hi, Super Mookers. Welcome to Monday morning. I'm Christy.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to our live interview with Jack Lemire. We're very, very happy to have you today, Jeff.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here.
So Jeff has written he's written a ton of stuff. His Justice League Unlimited comes out this Wednesday, so make sure you pick that up. He's written Sweet Tooth. He's written Underwater Welder. He's writing Trilogy, which we're huge fans of.
Oh.
He's written Animal Man. He's written just
Essex County.
Essex County, so good. So just written a ton of stuff, both superhero and non-superhero. For this class, we read your Animal Man with the Swamp Thing crossover Rot World. But I know a lot of people have also read Sweet Tooth, and that's environmental.
Yeah, I could see
so we're counting that too. All questions can come from that angle too. So just tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing right now, and working, of course, and just give us a little introduction to who is Jack Lemire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Canadian cartoonist. You know, I started doing independent work here, self-publishing stuff. Probably 2000, 2002, I think I started really taking comics seriously, and my first major work was the Essex County Trilogy, which Top Shelf published in 2006, 2007. And then from there I started working at Vertigo a little bit, and then Sweet Tooth, of course, was my first ongoing book with Vertigo that I drew and wrote, and that kind of led to doing DC work as well, Superboy, and then Animal Man and Frankenstein and Justice League and all the stuff that I'm doing now. Yeah, so right now I'm mostly doing Justice League United and Green Arrow, and just finished Trillium, and just started working on my next graphic novel for Simon Schuster. So.
Oh, awesome!
Nice.
That's great. Yeah, I forgot to mention Green Arrow. It's kind of big right now. And I also forgot to mention, because it's Monday morning, that you write and you draw, which is a really awesome combination.
Yeah, it's you know, I think the stuff that I write and draw myself tends to be my strongest material. Unfortunately, I can't draw everything, but you know, for me, that process of cartooning, the writing and drawing all mixed together is really when I think I'm at my best. So.
Yeah. Now,
Is it different, like when you come up with a script, just because I'm curious, is it different when you're doing it yourself than when you have to lay it out for another artist?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, when I first started writing for other artists, I think I tried to be too controlling and tried to give them thumbnails and layouts of how I would draw it, you know. And I kind of discovered over time that the less art direction I gave them, the better the results were, because they were free to be themselves as well and not so constricted. So I started to, my scripts got more and more stripped down and simple, and I think it works better that way.
yeah, I think that happens with a lot of artists and writers when they're learning about each other. The scripts get less descriptive, and they take more reign. At least that's how it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I have a lot of the artists I've worked with have said that my scripts are very easy to draw, and I think that's just because I understand what it takes to draw from a script, so I write it in a way that's, you know, very easy to translate. So.
Yeah, Ramona Fraden, who is one of my all-time favorite artists, she told me once that she thinks that all writers should have to attend an artist-led workshop.
Absolutely.
They understand that, so you have that advantage.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems in the mainstream comic stuff right now in editorial, a lot of the problems are that a lot of the editors working today have never been artists or writers themselves, and so they don't fully understand the craft either, and that's a problem. Yeah. You look back, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and a lot of the editors were artists or writers themselves, and I think that's a big asset. You know.
Oh, I agree. Well, we're going to get to our first question. Our first question is from David Amore, and he says, I love the Baker family unit. The strength of Buddy's wife and children and the way they stick together make Animal Man one of the most refreshing titles in the New 52. I wanted to ask about the totems in Rot World. Was the choice to make Maxine rather than Buddy the avatar of the Red a commentary on the fragility of humanity?
I came from a couple different things, you know. I was really influenced by Jamie Delano's run on Animal Man. You know, most people think of Grant Morrison's run when they think of Animal Man, rightly so, because it's brilliant. But Jamie's was actually the run that informed my take on the character a bit more. He was a bit more focused on the environment and on. He kind of came up with the idea of the red, and he never really delved into it too far, but he kind of scratched the surface. And he was the one who hinted at Maxine kind of taking after Buddy and having his powers. So I kind of just ran with that. And I just from my own creative point of view, I always feel. I mean, you can see what I did in Sweet Tooth with using young characters, children, as a way of sort of embodying innocence and purity and things like that. And so if you bring that into Animal Man and give Maxine the powers and make her the focus, it becomes all the dangers and all the horror surrounding that family become much more tangible when there's a child at risk. And yeah, so those are all the reasons that I made Maxine kind of the focus of the series, as opposed to just Buddy.
Awesome. I love that aspect of it. I thought it was great.
One up there. Steve Haley asked, he has two questions. First, he says, Animal Man and Sweet Tooth present potential apocalyptic scenarios for our planet. So you feel like we're doomed race if we don't get our act together?
Well, I feel we are a doomed race. I think we're heading that way. But in both those titles, I think there's a real sense of hope as well at the end, and that hope comes from children. It comes from the next generation, and so that's really where my point of view is. I think we've fucked everything up, but we can never give up and never stop trying. And my own son's 5, and even the way he looks at the environment and the world around him compared to how I did when I was that age, he's so much more aware of it and so much more sensitive to the world around him and how he has to respect it. And so that hope is what sort of drives those works. Even though they're both very dark stories, that sense of hope I think comes through at the end of both series.
Are there any comics in particular that influenced you to steer your stories into the socially conscious stories that they are?
I think Jamie Delano had a sense of social consciousness to his work, all of his work, Animal Man and the other stuff he did at Vertigo back in the 90s. So, like I said, his take on the character really informed me. And
no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. See, I got distracted by you guys. It won't happen again. Yeah, in terms of steering my work towards a more socially conscious place, I think it just came out of the stories themselves. Both Sweet Tooth and Animal Man were stories dealing with the natural world, and as a result, you kind of they just grew out of that. I don't know what inspired that or what the original seed was. If it was, I certainly didn't sit down to make a socially conscious work. I sit down to tell a great story, and then that kind of just comes out of it.
That's a great answer. Joseph Music asks, was there an intent to bring the concept of sustainability, or at least to speak the idea by giving us the red, the green, and rot world? Or did you have some other metaphor in mind?
No, I mean, the rot world and the whole red, green, rot aspect, to be fair, was sort of something I came up with in concert with Scott Snyder. So it was both of us working together, and neither of us really invented those concepts. I think we came up with the rot as sort of a counterpoint to the natural world and to sustainability and everything else. But the green was Alan Moore, 30 years ago, and the red was Jamie Delano 20 years ago. So it was really us just taking what they had introduced and maybe modernizing it and representing it in an accessible superhero kind of way. And then, when you create it using any hero or any of these stories, you kind of think of what the counterpoint to that hero is, and that's where the rot came from. And the rot obviously is a pretty powerful metaphor for the current state of our planet and the environment and everything else. So it was pretty timely, and I think it struck a nerve.
Yep. One of the questions that we asked, what we do is we read the book, and then we always put a summary in case people can't read the book. And then we ask a discussion question, and one of the discussion questions was, if the rot were real, do you think more people would be into the environment, and safety?
I think the rot is real.
I really do.
I think the things happening on our planet right now are much worse than anything happening in Rot World, and no one seems to care. So I don't know. It's much more real and much more horrific than any cartoon monsters we come up with. So, and the majority, unfortunately, I think the majority of people, it's much easier to ignore it and go on with their lives because they don't want to be inconvenienced or they don't want to be reminded of what we're doing. So I think the rot is real and is winning.
But do you think one of the reasons that we're doing this class is that books like yours and Scott's really do bring this to people's attention, because people will read this, at least this is what we hope, people read this and they can compare it to the real world and say,
sure,
oh, this is a reflection of this. So it may bring more people's attention to the problem.
Well, I think that's what art should be. Art should be something that makes brings certain topics or themes or ideas and presents them in a way that's entertaining, and you start thinking about them without realizing you're thinking about them. You're not being preached to. You're not being you don't feel like you're in school, but you're just enjoying a story, and then you start thinking about these things naturally. I think art at its best creates a discussion, and then where that discussion goes is up to the reader. But yeah, so.
You kind of answered our next question. It's by Lucas Allen Morris, and they asked just that. Do you think it's comics' responsibility to kind of raise awareness on social issues like that?
Well, I don't think it's comics' responsibility. I think it's any artist's responsibility to communicate whatever it is that he or she is concerned with and or interested in, and open a discussion. And certainly the environment is something that I think we should all be pretty concerned with at the moment. So if you could take comic book stories and use pop culture, whether it's comics or film or whatever, and get kids or any, not just kids, but anyone thinking about these things and engaging in it, I think it's a success. And hopefully we did that, but hopefully we also just told a really good, fun comic story as well. That's really the balance, is to not be preachy or because as soon as you start doing that, people turn off and don't want to read it. So.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one of the things. But with comics, what's great about learning with comics is that you don't get that preachy, that preachy vibe, and it kind of relaxes people and lets them discuss these things without having that preachy vibe that they have to learn. And it's teaching people that they can learn anywhere. It doesn't have to be in this square box that they have to go to 12 hours a day or however it seems.
Right.
Well, it does seem longer sometimes. So, our next question is Russell Pirazek. And he asked, how much does the concept of maintaining the environment come into play with your works? How does working so closely with it an animal thing compare to how you view the world around your characters and titles like Trillium? At least snuck Trillium in there.
How much is it? I guess the question is, how much does that inform my work? It really, honestly, it varies from project to project. There's some things I'm working on where it doesn't come into it at all, really, because it just doesn't. It's not natural. Pun not intended. Like Green Arrow, there's just not a place for that kind of a theme in that book. It's not natural to the character, But yeah, Animal Man and Sweet Tooth, it's such a big part of the underlying themes and everything else. I can't help but inform it. So it's really from a project-by-project basis, It goes back to what we were saying about not being preachy, and I think sometimes if you try to say something or squeeze something into a story where it doesn't fit, it won't be successful, or it won't end up communicating what you intended anyway. It'll just be sort of a square peg in a round hole thing. So. Yeah, so I guess the short answer, it just depends on the project, really. But I think it will. It's something I'm very aware of, and I'm sure it will inform other projects moving forward. Now that Sweet Tooth and Animal Man are done, I'll see. I think I can see it already finding its way into other little things, especially Justice League United series. It's starting to creep into there a little bit. So.
Oh, awesome! So. How much research do you have to do on, the environment and on these things when you're writing stories like Animal Man, the Swamp Thing crossover or Sweet Tooth?
Well, I'm going to give you the honest answer, and it's probably not the answer you want to hear, but not very much, because the truth is, when we got when we got Sweet Tooth and Animal Man, Scott and I, it was like it was the New 52 when they launched that, or decided they were going to launch that. It was so quick, and behind the scenes there was so much thrown at us so quickly. We just had to react. We didn't have time to take a couple months and do research. We just had to start writing, you know, and I think this was like the spring of 2011 when they kind of decided to do the relaunch, and I was writing Superboy and Sweet Tooth and other things, and then I had to come up with, you know, Animal Man and Frankenstein. So there was a couple months there of crossover between finishing up the old 52 and then starting the new 52 stuff, where I was writing 6 or 7 monthly books and drawing one, and you're just going on instinct at that point, you know. It was me and Scott getting on the phone, and he was doing Swamp Thing, and I was doing Animal Man, and we were such good friends, and just throwing both of our ideas back and forth on what we wanted to do with the characters, and seeing a natural crossover there between the characters and what we could create with the rot and everything. It really all just came from the gut. There was very little research. It was all you know, research is what you do between projects. When you're in the heat of the moment, you just, everything you've learned, everything that you are, just kind of comes out on the page naturally, and it is what it is. So yeah, so not much research.
It worked well, and I think that says a lot for your character, that you can write about these issues because you already have that responsibility and those feelings just inside of you. So bravo to you. And I also have to say that I think you and Scott are the Ian McKellen and the Patrick Stewart of the comics world. I think you're so cute, but I think you should wear little hats and take pictures together.
We will. We're going to Hawaii on vacation this fall. We'll take lots of pictures on the beach and put them on Twitter.
All right, that'll be cool. We'll start pushing that relationship then. We're going to have Scott on next for the next module, so I'm sure we'll get some environment questions for him.
We're going to talk to him about Hawaii and taking pictures.
Yeah, and we'll mention Hawaii too. So
yeah.
We have a question actually that we talked about before we started recording. Buddy Baker, his powers, he can channel the life force of any animal. Does that include animals that are extinct?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's well, actually, yeah. It's not a question I ever thought about. That would be a cool story point. I think anything that was ever alive is now part of the life force of the Red. So technically, I think he probably could. Yeah.
So it's all the life. Everything.
I think everything that dies comes back into the Red and becomes part of it and flows back out. So I would think yes.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah. So you have Dodo Bird.
Why did I not? How did I not think of him channeling a dinosaur? That would have been so awesome. I better email DC and ask to write one more issue.
It's a one shot. Do a one shot. Oh, that would be so awesome.
That would be awesome.
I guess we can do it in Justice League.
Yeah, just have him show up just for an issue. Julius Vincent Nerito. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. What inspired or convinced you to write about the environment? I guess you kind of already answered that. Yeah. What was your mission or vision? You already answered that. So
I don't think I had a mission. I don't. It's like I said. I don't go into these things with a mission to educate or preach or anything. You come into it with what you think is a compelling story or a character, and it all kind of comes out of that. So.
Yeah.
Oh, we got one. How much of your work is connected to the land? How do you decide on the settings for your book?
Yeah, setting is a big part of all of my work. I think it started with Essex County, of me trying to capture sort of the place I grew up, on a small farm in southern Ontario, and the place itself became such a key part of that story, and the setting was like a character itself, and I think the success of that kind of informed where I went from there. So I think Justice League United actually would be a pretty unique comic to talk about in this interview if it had already been out. But the environment in the Northern Ontario, where I've been spending time on one of the First Nations, has really informed that book and really informed sort of the point of view and the outlook with the Cree people that I met in the North they have towards the land and towards nature, and the way they view that is really informed how I'm writing that book. So maybe a year from now we can have another one of these interviews and talk about that.
Well, that would be awesome. I'm just so looking forward to that. And I have to put a disclaimer that Swamp Thing is like my favorite by Alan Moore. It's my favorite book of all.
It's probably my favorite book.
My little Swamp Thing earrings today. It's like, you know how some people like read Jane Eyre or Pride and Prejudice every year. That's mine.
Same with me. I read it every year. It's probably my favorite comic. That one, at least one of the top 2 or 3 for sure.
It's just the way that it's everything about it. The story is amazing, and the way that he was so ahead of his time. I think it was just wonderful. So I was really happy when you and Scott did.
Yeah, I know when you love something as much as we love that, it's hard. You know, it's easy to be intimidated and not want to try to look. You know, it would be very easy for us to be intimidated and not want to do that. But I think the fact that it was 2 of us working together, we motivated each other. Didn't feel alone in it. You know, if it was just me trying to continue the story that Alan Moore and Jamie Delaney had done, I think I would have been intimidated, or if it was just Scott. But the 2 of us kind of fed off each other, and if we fell on our face, at least we'd fall together. So romantic, isn't it?
That is romantic.
Falling together.
That's so cute. I'm going to ask this underwater welder question because it's from one of a student that's my friend, and he wanted to know. This is from Jeff Brackett. Hey, Jeff. And he wanted to know about how real the characters in Underwater Welder, were they inspired from real life, or where did you get the idea?
You know, it's like with Essex County, I get asked a lot because those books are so personal and feel so intimate, I think. I get asked how real the characters are, if they're people I know, if they're me or whatever. And the truth is, none of those characters in Essex County or the Welder are really biographical. They're all, you know, you take little bits of people here and there and kind of mix them all together and into those characters. So it's not a direct autobiography or anything like that. But I mean, certainly Underwater Welder was a very personal work. I started working on that book in 2008, right before Sweet Tooth. And at that time, my wife and I didn't have our son yet. And then over the course of working on the book, she became pregnant, and then she gave birth, and we had a kid. And then by the time I finished the book, he was 3, I think. So, you know, my experiences from not being a dad, but kind of thinking about possibly becoming a parent, to her becoming pregnant, and the fear and anxiety and everything else that comes with becoming a parent for the first time, and then sort of having a kid for 2-3 years, and just seeing how amazing it is and embracing that whole journey informed the character's journey, because that book took so long to finish. So, so while it's not a direct autobiography, it's certainly, you know, a lot of myself went into that book.
Do you think more of yourself goes into your books like Underwater Welder and Essex County than in things like Animal Man and Justice League? Yeah,
I think it definitely, and that's not to put down or belittle those works, but it's just a reflection of the process of making them. The stuff I write and draw myself, I mean, I'm writing and drawing it myself. I'm in total control. Every line on the page is from my hand, so it's more personal and it's more direct. Whereas when you're working with editors and other artists, it becomes part of a collaboration. So it's like you're only one part of a bigger little tapestry there. And I put as much of myself into that part as I can, but other people are bringing themselves to it as well, so it becomes something more than just you.
Is that from Allie? Is that a question from Allie? In Rot World, personal loss and destruction of the environment seem to go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Did that come naturally in telling the story of the Baker family in this very extreme setting?
Yeah, well, you try to make everything personal to the character, whether it be the horrors that they're facing or the losses that they suffer. That book was always about family, and that family was a metaphor for for everyone, really, and for the planet. And so to lose one of them is I'm losing my train of thought. But yes, it's, you know, everything that happened to that family is sort of a metaphor for the bigger story. So the loss of Cliff was certainly personally a very huge blow to Buddy, but also it just signifies a bigger loss, in the environment, or the rot being pushed back but still claiming something.
Okay. Jacob is getting ready to ask a Trillium question. He's a huge Trillium fan, but while we wait for him, so how much of when you and Scott were discussing, coming up with the rot, what was that process like?
It starts from a very simple thing where we have Swamp Thing and Animal Man, and you think of what they embody or what they represent, and it's life, the environment, and so when you're trying to come up with a villain or a threat for them to face, you just think of the counterpoint to that, and that's decay and rot, darkness, and it's very simple, and then you just build out from that little foundation. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of forgot what the question.
It was how did you come up with the rot?
Yeah, that was it. Just thinking of the counterpoint, the antithesis of both of those characters, and then making cool monsters. So.
This is a personal question. How did it feel? Swamp Thing is, as we've discussed, is such just an awesome book. I can't say how much I love it. So how did it feel to actually contribute, not just you and Scott, not just writing the books, but contributing to the myth?
Yeah, it's really surreal, because I feel like everything happened so fast for me, from doing Essex County in 2006 to writing the stuff I'm writing at DC. Only a few years later, I went from someone who grew up loving the Swamp Thing stuff and reading it every year like you do, and just to contributing to that mythology, and it's completely surreal and didn't seem really real at the time. You're just so busy doing it, you don't think about the bigger picture like that. But it's something I'm very proud to have been a part of now, and I think we didn't just rehash what they had done before, and we certainly didn't disrespect it. We managed to respect it and add to it and enhance, I think, what had been laid down. So I think I'm pretty, I guess the short answer is that I'm pretty proud of the work that we did, and really proud to be a part of that mythology that I think so fondly of.
Oh yeah, you did a fantastic job building on the mythology.
Absolutely.
Is there? I have a personal question. Is there any other characters that you'd like to get your hands on, or you'd like to write?
It's tricky, Sometimes I think what I've learned in the last couple of years is sometimes the characters you love the most, just because you love a character and you grew up reading that character, doesn't mean you're necessarily the most equipped to write that character. And an example of that would be Constantine. I think that, like Swamp Thing, well, Constantine obviously came out of this Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff, and then all the Hellblazer stuff. That was sort of my favorite comics, were Alan Moore Swamp Thing, and then the first 60 or 80 issues of Hellblazer. And then when I had a chance to write Constantine and Justice League Dark and a solo series for a little bit, I was so excited. It was my favorite character, and I feel like I really there was just too much baggage. I loved the stories that had been told with him so much that I couldn't do my own thing with him, and I don't think I succeeded. I don't think I succeeded in adding to his mythology or enhancing or anything, And a part of that is my own fault, but part of it's also the fact is that Constantine's a character that works much better as a Vertigo book where you can do anything. And when you're trying to mix him with the superhero world and you have restrictions on what you can do with him and stuff, it's just really hard to make him work anymore. So there's a combination of things that made my work on that character less successful, I think, than what we did on Animal Man. But and then the flip side is that sometimes you get a character like Green Arrow, Green Arrow was always around the comics I was reading, but it was never a character I particularly had any fondness for, or really was dying to tell a Green Arrow story. But yet I've had probably the most fun writing that book. Maybe because there is no baggage, maybe I can just kind of take it and do my own thing without any preconceived notion of what he should be. So yeah, So to answer your question, are there any characters I really am dying to write? It's really hard to say. Sometimes you get presented with something you think you'd want to write so badly, and then you start thinking about it, and it's just not there, you know. And then other things like Green Arrow come out of left field, and your first reaction is Green Arrow. You know, I don't have any interest in that, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about the character, and you just really want to write it. So it's hard to say, you know. I feel like I've really gotten a chance to write all my favorites mostly, you know, now. So I don't know what would be next, but
more Trillium. So, how did you and Scott choose which DC heroes to sacrifice to the Rot?
That was those were tricky waters to navigate politically, but I shouldn't get into that. But yeah, you know, honestly, we just took the whole New 52 lineup and we kind of split it up. You know, Scott took sort of the Young Justice, Teen Titans characters and stuff, and I took the more action-based stuff, like I can't remember who I even killed anymore, Hawkman, Grifter, all that stuff. But yeah, we really just wanted to try to get a little bit of everyone, you know, to show that it was a universe-wide thing, and it really affected the entire planet. So we just split up the whole DC universe amongst the two of us and tried to represent at least some of everyone in the rot-infested world, you know. And then the characters that survived, again, came out of characters with a connection to the environment, or in the case of someone like Steel, a character who would be immune to what was going on. So you kind of chose characters like that.
Okay. Nice.
Matt Crook asked, what do you do for yourself so you don't get burned out as a creator? Go to Hawaii with Scott Snyder, I think that's what.
Yeah. No, you know, the truth of the matter is I don't, there's nothing in life other than my wife and son that I love as much as comic books. So when you get to do what you love every day, it's really hard to get burnt out, because this comics is, if I had a day job, you know, working in a factory or something, reading and drawing and making comics would be the thing that I did on my free time. So when it's hard to get burnt out doing what you would want to do on your free time. Anyway, you know, there's often at night after I've been drawing for 9 hours, whatever, and I get home and my son's in bed and it's time to relax, I just start working again, and my wife kind of looks at me like, "Why are you working?" It's like, this is what I want to be doing. You know, I want to be writing this little Green Arrow idea I had. Or, you know, so it's you know, it's hard to get burnt out doing what you love, I guess, is the answer.
Oh, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we understand.
Yep, we spend lots of hours in the store.
And then go home and write comics and
comics.
Yeah.
Write stuff for this class. And, you know, at this class, it's just we're doing this in addition to the store, just for no reason, I guess, just because it needs to be done.
Cool. Yeah.
Laura Castle, she asked, can we have a technological solution to technologically based environmental destruction?
I don't know what that means.
So we're
what is she asking?
we're destroying the environment with technology. So
right.
Can we find a
I see what she's saying.
Based? Laura's really smart. She when she was reading Rot World, she was tweeting it as she was reading, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. It's actually a really interesting. That would be a very interesting story to see. You know, I feel like Sweet Tooth, and especially, you know, the ending of that is sort of a return to nature and a return to the natural world, and that being what saves us. But I think the idea of with technology, yeah, that's a very interesting theme. I think that would be a really great story. See, you know, someone trying to use the very thing that, you know, has destroyed the world to save it again, and it's not something I've actually explored in any of my work, but it's a really interesting idea. Yeah.
That's kind of what happened in Terminator, right? Use the Terminator to save the world, and that's what destroyed. Never mind.
My head hurts. We're giving all sorts of ideas.
Yeah. I wish I could talk actually a little bit more about that, but there's a project I'm working on at the moment that isn't specifically that, but it kind of touches on that idea of there's a character that embodies the natural world and a character that embodies the machine world, and and they kind of come together, and an interesting metaphor is created. And it's not exactly what you're talking about, but that would be, maybe, you know, in a few months from now we could talk about that.
Okay. Laura just said that she was horrified by my praise and flattered. She asked really smart questions. So, do you think that the environment is something that is best? Well, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I don't know either. Maybe making a little ball for him.
I know. I make this little. I use my hands a lot. So, do you think that the environment is something that needs to be put in comics, not just social issues, but the environment? Do you think? I've read this really interesting book, Snowpiercer.
Oh yeah, yep. I've read it as well. Yeah, I love it.
It is an amazing book, and I think that it really shows how the environment affects social issues. Do you think that more books like that should be made? I
think they are. I feel like if you look around at, if we just be specific to comics and sort of sci-fi kind of pop culture stuff, I think you're seeing more and more of that, these environments being created where, you know, these post-apocalyptic scenarios where the environment's been destroyed and people are trying to, you know, like Snowpiercer. And I don't know if you've read Wool. Have you heard of Wool? It's a series of novels, the Silo Trilogy by Hugh Howey.
I am not.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's sort of, again, it's reminiscent of Snowpiercer, where there are these huge underground silos that have been built that go down and down and down, and people live underground because the world above has been destroyed. And as you go further down into the silo, you know, the upper levels of the silo are the upper class, and you go down to the lower class. And they're amazing novels, you know. And I don't know, I'm off topic, but yeah, I think it's all around because the issue is becoming more and more immediate. So pop culture is reflecting it.
Snowpiercer was like written 25 years ago, something like that, and just now translated.
Yeah, I just read the first two. They're really interesting, and I think the films is, I don't know when it's going to be released in North America, but I'm looking forward to it.
This film, and I'm very interested. But I just read those books and fell in love with them. They're just
yeah. I highly recommend the Silo Trilogy by Hugh Howey, and another trilogy that the first book just came out last month, the Southern Reach Trilogy. I don't know if you've heard of this. Jeff Vandermeer, I believe, is the writer, and then again, it's about this very bizarre environment where there's this sort of growing breach in trying to how to describe this. There's this strange zone on the world where everything has been slowly returning to a natural state, and it's growing and growing and growing out from there, and these scientists are researching and trying to find the origins of it. The first book's called Annihilation, and it's super creepy, and there's this Lovecraftian kind of horror under it, but there's also a very interesting, I think for people of this class would find it very interesting, the return to the natural world and how in this book it's almost treated as a horrific thing, but at least in the first volume, but I feel like it's going to go somewhere more interesting. So.
Okay, great. So one of the other books that we're reading is Hinterkind. Have you looked at that?
I have not. I'm aware of it, but I have not read it yet, unfortunately.
Okay, it's really interesting because it's one of the things where the world kind of returns, not quite to the natural state, but the humans go from, as I call it, from heroes to zeros.
Yep.
And so that's one of the other books that we're looking at for this environment, because
that's cool.
One of the things that can happen, and it's such an interesting book, and it's so different than a lot of things that are out there today.
That's cool.
Want to ask Laura's question?
Laura Castle once again asked a question. She said it was interesting that Batman survived, but was corrupted by the rot. Was that a commentary on the wealthy's ability to survive an environmental disaster?
That's interesting. No, I don't know that it was. So you have to ask Scott, because that was really his call. I think he just couldn't part with not having Batman. But that's actually that makes us sound smarter than we are. So I'll say yes. That's exactly what we thought.
That's a commentary.
That's how I feel. Laura's so smart, because I just would have thought, oh no, it's because it's Batman. You can't do that. But no, looking deeper into it, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah, it's exactly. I remember that conversation when we talked about that.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, that's it's Hawaii, right? Your last trip.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up because we're about at the. Oh, we have one more question.
Yeah, I don't mind going for a little bit if there's a couple more.
Okay.
It's up to you guys.
I know that we made you get up early and.
No, I'm always at my studio much earlier than this. So
oh,
I'm a morning guy.
So you work at a studio away from home?
Yeah, I do.
You find that you can get more work done that way?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work at home, and then two things happened. I had a kid, and it's hard to work at home when he was home the first couple of years because he wanted to hang out. And also, I got on the DC comp list, and my comic book collection grew exponentially, and I had no room for it anymore. But yeah, no, my studio's great. It's sort of my little time bubble away from everything where I can just work by myself.
Okay.
Be surrounded by all the things I love.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I think that's what I'm going to say.
I always like looking at people's studio when like they Skype with us or do hang out with us because I see the stuff in the background like. And I'm like,
yeah, I'll show you something really cool if I can. Okay. I don't know if you'll see it. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Oh, that's the cover.
Yeah, it's Travels, the original art from the Animal Man 1. There, it's right above my desk. It's
beautiful.
That's awesome.
Pretty amazing piece.
Swamp Thing is all over my house.
Yeah, I have a few Swamp Things around here. I have a Steve Bissett Swamp Thing right over there. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I got Yannick Paquette to do Swamp Thing.
Yeah, he's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Beautiful. We have on a tree outside of our house. We have this resin Swamp Thing that just kind of blends in with the tree. So you drive up to our house and you just see the Swamp Thing.
Oh, that's cool.
The tree. It's so cool. I'll tweet a picture. It's awesome. Jacob has a question. He said, do you think through pollution and the obstruction of our environment, we are heading towards a situation like in Trilogy? For example, the appearance of a smart disease like the call and the need for humans to flee the planet in order to survive?
Well, I think that's a pretty extreme example. I hope it doesn't come to that, But, I mean, it's hard not to think that way sometimes when you see the state of the planet, the decisions that our governments keep making that seem so counter to everything they should be doing. So yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that. But.
See, I think of Canadians as more conscious about the environment than
we're generally a little bit superior in every way, but
like hockey.
Yeah.
Are you do you like the Habs? Is that it?
Oh no, I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, okay. So Montreal is they're our sworn enemies.
Okay. Boo them. Boo.
Yeah, they are the rot, and we are.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be.
That's going to be very popular on Twitter.
That'll be on Twitter. That's all right. I had a question, and now I can't remember what it was.
So hockey threw you off.
I got into the hockey environment. So I don't remember the question I had. I think then we will just. We did answer that. Oh, I was going to say about Earth 2. They found another Earth. So,
yes.
Did you see that? So
I can't talk about that because I know much more about it than you guys do.
Yes.
No, in space, for real.
Oh, yes, I did see that. That was amazing. I thought you meant the Earth 2, the comics.
That's what I thought. Oh! We're talking comics here.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Actually, I retweeted it. That was really... that's the first thing I thought of when the Trillium question was asked about leaving the planet and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, isn't it?
And I'm like, please call it Earth 2.
Yeah.
They won't.
If they zoom in and see Jake Eric running around with a little tin hat, I'm going to be
That would be so cool. Oh.
Would it, or would it be really creepy?
That would be awesome. Well, thank you for both being on our... for our interview for the Super Mooc and for writing such awesome material that we can use on the Super Mooc.
Cool.
We just love everything you write. It's just amazing. And draw. So
thank you. Yeah, make sure you check out Justice League United because I think a lot of the themes we talked about today you'll see coming through in that book, especially in I'm on issues 5 or 6 now as it gets into it.
Nice.
People
it starts this week.
Well, we'll push that on Super Mooc and tell everybody, to give it a shot. And this is like it's a 5-month, almost 6-month long class. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
To get into it. So, is there anything that you want to promote?
No,
Besides,
I think I'm good. Yeah. Jason, when I use Animal Man as a dinosaur in the next Justice League United issue, you're not going to sue me for stealing your idea, are you?
No, heck no.
That was my idea.
Oh, was it yours? All right.
Yeah, it was Christy's idea. I was just like, that's a really good question. And I think my answer was no. I was no, he probably couldn't do that.
Yeah, he said no, he can't. And I was just thinking of that this morning because I didn't run a light. Usually when I think of these questions, I run lights and my daughter gives me the worst time. But yeah, I was just thinking that I was wondering why if the answer was no, I think Buddy would be more of an activist,
Right. Yeah, it's more
Right,
motivation.
so.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So see, I think the answer is yes. I think Jack's right.
Yeah. Well, of course, clearly he's right. He knows.
Answer over you.
I know nothing. I make it up as I go along.
I'm going with your answer. It's a yes. So yeah, no, go ahead. Take the dinosaur idea, and we'll be all happy, and we'll just sell tons of it here. So.
Or the dodo idea.
I like the dodo too. He just walks around running into walls and stuff, falling off cliffs. That would be fun. Okay, we've taken so much of your time. Thank you so much, and hope to see you at San Diego this year.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. And
yeah, you too.
Thanks for all the great
questions.
questions.
Oh wait, I have one question.
Oh,
what does Mooc stand for? I couldn't find out.
A Mooc stands for a Massive Open Online Course.
Thank you.
We actually want to change it. We want to change it to Massive Open Didactic Online Course, so we can call it MODOC.
Yes, I think you should.
I think it's awesome. Didactic is such a really awesome word, too.
It is. It's a good one.
And it fits. So I think that we should call it a MODOC.
Super MODOC.
A Super
Super
MODOC.
MODOC. I like it.
I got a MODOC Lego figure, and he's all jealous of me.
Yeah.
I got the MODOC and Taskmaster. So
very cool.
Yeah, it was fun. So this is what we do. So, okay, we're totally off topic of the environment.
Jeff, we appreciate you being on the show, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.